To watch these important lessons, subscribe to DP Education's YouTube channel right now. Click on the bell icon to stay updated on the latest lessons. Sri Lanka's largest free online school, DP Education.
So my dear children, in the earlier chapter we discussed about the floods and the mitigation or the management of droughts. Then within this chapter we'll be discussing about the landslides, right? Within this chapter we'll be discussing about the landslides, my dear children. So here you are given with the point, the slipping down of soil layers in slopy regions in highlands can be considered as a landslide. So when you take a highland, okay, when you take a highland like this, as you can see here within these figures, these lands are somewhat located to like a higher or a greater altitude. So when the altitude is going to increase, my dear children, the potential energy, right, potential energy stored within the soil or the soil layers are also going to increase. So upon having high potential energy, right, and also due to having gravitational force of the earth, you know that earth has a gravitational force, and upon having high potential energy, and also because of the gravitational force, my dear children, if the land or the soil is getting sloppy, or if the soil or the land is going to like muddy and watery, in this case what will happen, the land or the soil layer will come down with water, right, because of the gravity and because of that high potential energy. So this coming down of land, slipping down of land, right, slipping down of soil layers or the land in slopy regions in these highlands is referred to as landslide. This is mainly occurring with the rain, my dear children. With the rain, this is going to occur. It's because now when the rain is going to increase in a particular highland area, water will soak inside the soil, and the soil structure, right, the bond between the soil structure will get reduced. So because of that particular land area will come down with the soil. Okay. So upon receiving heavy rainfall within a short time period, landslides can occur in highlands area, especially in hill country, our Sri Lanka. Okay. So as you can see here, my dear children, it's a very dangerous incident. Here you can see that within this figure, there's a certain motor vehicle, and that particular land or that particular mountain has now slipped down towards the motor vehicle. It's mainly because of the wetness of the soil. Okay. Here also the same, that muddy water with the soil layers are coming down, right? So this incident is the one which is referred as the landslide. So here it is given, landslides are a common disaster in central hills of Sri Lanka. So like I said, this landslide is a very common incident or very common natural disaster that we can observe, right, that we can observe within the hill country in Sri Lanka. Right then, the places of landslide danger are identified in some other districts. Also, those are areas in Badulla, Nuwareliya, Matale, Kandy, Kegol, Monaragala, Kurunegala, Ratnapura, Kalutara, Galle, Matara and Hambantota district. So my dear children, these are several areas in Sri Lanka which we have identified in risk of occurring landslides. So I told you that landslides are mainly going to occur within the hill country. But however, several other districts have also identified in risk of landslide due to having heavy rainfall. Now, in order to occur this landslide thing, my dear children, right, there should be heavy rainfall. Rainfall is a must. Heavy rainfall is a must because that particular soil layer or that particular land area coming down with the water and with the mud. So, in order to soak water into the soil layers, there should be plenty of rainfall. So, rainfall is a must. Okay, rainfall is a must for a landslide. So, not only in hill country area, but in other different districts and areas, we can observe landslides. So, when you are comparing or when you are checking the map of Sri Lanka, there are several areas which the scientists have or the geologists have identified that having a risk of landslide. So, these districts are highlighted in the given figure. So, Badulla, Nuwareliya, then Matale, Kegol, Monragala, Kurunagala, Rattapura, Kalutara, Gaul, Matara and Hambantota, these areas which are colored within the given figure, my dear children, they face the danger of landslides. These areas contain highlands. These areas contain highlands, like I said before. So, upon receiving heavy amount of rainfall, these highlands may come down with soil layers upon soaking water. Okay. So, there are other different areas that do not show this landslide danger. Okay. Those areas in the map is being colored with white color. However, the endangered area are in this brownish color, my dear children. Okay. So, when you take Colombo and Gampaha, there are no certain hill country areas. Okay. There is no certain hilly areas. So, therefore, it is assumed that the Colombo and Gampaha areas are free from landslides. But however, my dear children, if you take a certain area, if it has a certain mountain or cliff-like thing, okay, a certain mountain, a cliff-like thing, and if that area is going to receive plenty of rainfall within a short time period, then my dear children, there is a risk of getting landslide. Okay, no matter the place, there is a risk of getting landslide. This map shows the areas that has the most danger in occurrence of a landslide. However, the other areas also might have the same probability, but the probability scale is somewhat less, my dear children, when you compare it with these districts. Okay, right then. So, these are the main districts that show the, like the danger, or these are the districts that's going to face the danger of landslide. So, people who are living in these areas, somewhat closer to hilly areas, should be aware of the landslide situation. Okay, right then. What is happening during a landslide is the slipping down of a lump of soil or layer of soil upon another layer under gravity. So, like I said, my dear children, the main reason for a landslide is Now let's imagine that these two are, now my hand are the two layers. So one is like this and the other one is like this. So during dry season, my dear children, these two layers are going to firmly hold each other during dry season, right? The slipperiness is somewhat less, but however, what will happen if I'm going to put some water into this layer? Then I'm going to keep my hand like this. Then what will happen? Definitely my second hand will come down like this, because you know that water is somewhat slippery. Okay, so that's the thing which is going to occur during a landslide also. You know that our earth or our soil layer, in our earth, the soil layers are arranged one by one each like this. So when water is going to soak inside a particular layer, right, the bond between two layers are going to reduce. And if this is like a slopey area like this, then the second layer will definitely come down with the muddy water and the soaked water, right? So this particular condition is the one which is referred as a landslide. So all the houses, constructions, trees, animals who are living in that particular area will definitely come down with the soil layer, okay, during a landslide. Then here it is given, continuous heavy rain causes landslides in risky regions. So like I said, my dear children, continuous heavy rain is the main reason for the causing or for the occurrence of a landslide. Mainly landslides are going to occur because of heavy rain, right? I told you that when there is a heavy rain, water will definitely soak between the two layers of soil. In that case, one particular layer, the topmost layer, will come down with the water. So this incident is the one which is referred as the landslide. So having a heavy rainfall is a main causative agent of a landslide. Soil soaked in rainwater becomes heavy. The bond between soil particles and the bedrock getting weak at the same time. So I have explained this thing. So here what will happen? Upon soaking water, what will happen? The bond between the soil particles between two different layers, here the bedrock and the soil layer, is going to reduce. So because of that, the soil layer will definitely come down. So due to the weakened bond, there is a point that the bedrock cannot hold the upper soil layer further. At that moment, soil particles start to flow down suddenly, and soil particles nearby the activity region join with the flow. So it's obvious to us that at a certain moment, my dear children, what will happen? There's going to be a certain moment which the bedrock or the lower soil layer will not be able to hold the topmost soil layer because of the slipperiness. So definitely the upper or the topmost soil layer will come down with the water and the soil particles. Okay, it's mainly occurring because of the reduction of bond between the bedrock or the lower soil layer and with the top soil layer. Okay, so when it is coming down, here it is given, gravitational potential energy of the lumps of soil increases because of being in a higher elevation and absorption of water. So I told you that when it is coming down, right, there should be a force which is going to push the soil layers downward. Okay, so that's a particular force is the gravitational potential energy, right? The gravitational potential energy. Potential energy is stored as it is on a higher level. And also the gravitational effect or the gravitational force acting on the particular soil layer is also going to increase because of the elevation. Now when these two factors come and join with the heavy amount of waterfall or heavy amount of rainfall, then my dear children, the disastrous condition, all the factors needed for the disastrous condition is now being fully fulfilled, right? Higher elevation, gravitational force, water soaking into soil layers. So all of these factors are now being fulfilled. So what will happen? The topmost soil layer will come down with all the contents in the soil. Okay. Then this high potential energy is converted to kinetic energy while the layers of soil are slipping down. Because of this kinetic energy, lumps of soil and rocks collect everything in the root while flowing down. So like I said, now when completing these three factors, what will happen? The soil layer will tend to move down. As it is gradually moving down, my dear children, the speed of the soil layers are also going to increase. It's mainly because the potential energy which is at the top of the cliff or which is at the top of the elevation point is now gradually getting converted into kinetic energy. So when the soil layer is going to come down time to time, the kinetic energy is going to increase, and because of increasing kinetic energy, the motion or the velocity or the speed of these soil particles are also going to increase. So when they come across with other particles and other objects, all of these things will come down at a greater speed, right? So all the lumps of soil around the hill area will come down with the water. So this particular condition is the one which is referred as the landslide. Okay, this is the one which is referred as the landslide. So you hope that sometimes you will think that now some layer of soil which is coming down, no, so it's going to be like it's going to be like like inches or sometimes in feet. No, not like that. It depends on the quantity and the elevation, right? So if the area or if the landsliding area is at a higher level or at a very high, if it has a very high elevation, my dear children, then sometimes the route of a landslide may be as long as how much? 1 kilometer, not in feet, not in meters. It can be like 1 kilometer of a distance. Okay, this sliding down process can carry it up to like 1 kilometer of a distance, right? It's mainly because of the kinetic energy possessed by the soil particles when they are coming from top to the bottom. So this route will continue up to 1 kilometer of a distance sometimes. So these landslides are very dangerous, my dear children. Right? These landslides are very dangerous. So during a landslide, what will happen upon having a good gravitational force and having a good potential energy? When there is rain, when there is heavy rain, water will soak into layers of soil, and the topmost soil layer will definitely come down, converting high potential energy to kinetic energy. So when the soil layer is coming downward, gradually the speed is getting increased because of converting that potential energy into kinetic energy. So this procedure or this method, this coming down of soil layer towards the ground is referred as the landslide or the earth slip, right? The danger is that, my dear children, all the things which is carried within the surface of the soil, okay, all the things which are placed on the surface of the soil is going to crash down and come down with the lump of soil, right? Sometimes, according to the elevation, this route of landslide may go up to like 1 kilometers. So it's going to be a very hazardous condition, my dear children. Sometimes people, definitely several people, animals and other properties also going to be placed between these soil lumps, okay, and loss of lives will occur, definitely will occur, and other than that, definitely pretty much loss of properties will occur because of the landslides. Let's imagine that we can save the people, we can evacuate the people, but however we won't be able to evacuate the houses and the constructions that we already built. So all of those things going to be destroyed, right? All of those things going to be destroyed during a landslide, right? So even though our lives are being saved, our properties are going to definitely destroy because of the landslides. So it's a very hazardous thing, my dear children, right? There's no avoiding these things, right? As these things are natural disasters. These things going to occur suddenly, right? As these things are natural disasters, right then. So when a certain landslide is going to occur, sometimes, my dear children, we can observe different signs. That means by looking at a certain mountain or else a cliff range, if you are aware of landslides, right? If you have a good knowledge about landslides, right? Then a particular person can go and investigate about the particular mountain or the cliff. And by looking at certain signs, he can say that whether the landslide, whether this mountain is going to slide or not. Okay. So now within this part, we'll be observing what are those special signs that we can observe in a place where a landslide is going to occur, right? In a place which the landslide is going to occur, what are the special pre-signs that we can observe within that particular land? Okay, so let's see what are those. So here you are given pre-signs of a landslide. Number one, I told you that for a landslide, the first and foremost factor is the rainfall, right? So here it is given, receiving more than 100 millimeters of rainfall within 24 hours. Now within one day, within 24 hours, if a certain area is going to receive more than 100 millimeters of waterfall, more than 100 millimeters of rainfall, right? More than if the certain area is going to receive more than 100 millimeters of water as rain, then, my dear children, what will happen? Then there is a high risk of getting landslide. Okay, then there is a very high risk of getting a landslide. This heavy rain is the main reason for a landslide, because you know that the soil layers are like this. So when the top is receiving plenty of water, that will soak into the layers, and those soaking of water and that water which is soaked into the soil layers will definitely cause the landslide. Okay, so receiving plenty of water as rainfall during a day is going to cause landslide for sure. Here it is given as an amount also, receiving more than 100 millimeters of rainfall within a day is going to cause or will cause a landslide. Next one, appearing new cracks on the surface of the slope. Now, when you take a slope like this, appearing new cracks like this, cracks are going to appear like this. If new cracks are going to appear like this within a certain cliff or within a certain mountain, now these like cracks are going to occur like this. So in that case, my dear children, there can be a landslide. Okay, in that case there can be a landslide. If new cracks are going to appear, within the cliff. Then appearing cracks on buildings, that is also a pre-sign. Now let's imagine that a certain building, right? Let's imagine that a certain building is created on this slope. So let's take the same slope which is over here. So I'll take the slide somewhat up, my dear children. So let's imagine that there is a cliff like this. Now within a certain area like this, okay, there is a house. So I'm going to mark the house like this. By using a different color, I'll mark the house. Now this is the house. Okay. So let's imagine that, my dear children, right? Let's imagine that now removing of these layers is going to occur within a landslide. So let's imagine that this particular layer is going to remove, and like this particular layer is going to remove. So in that case, my dear children, from the foundation of the house over here, some kind of a part is going to fall down. So as you know that all of the parts in the house is interconnected each other, no? So therefore, when this thing is coming down, all the other interconnected parts are also tends to come down. In that case, my dear children, within these areas, some cracks are going to occur. On the floor, some cracks are going to occur, or in sometimes on walls, some cracks are going to occur. Right? So these cracks are coming mainly because when these soil layers are going to come down. So when these soil layers are going to come down, right, the parts which are above it are also going to come down. But however, as this is a certain house, right, the house is interconnected each other, so therefore cracks will definitely occur on the walls and on the floor. So by looking at these cracks which are going to appear on a certain house, we can decide, or we can get a certain idea whether a landslide is going to occur or not in the recent future. So if you can observe these cracks, definitely, my dear children, there is a high risk, there is a high potential of occurring a landslide. So it's better to evacuate the house and go for a safe place. Right then. Then the next one. Depressions on the earth. Sometimes several depressions on the particular earth area can be observed. On the living area, on the living land, right? Sometimes several depressions can be observed. So these depressions on the land also give us an idea that there is going to be a landslide within the recent future. Okay. So if there are several depressions on the land, it's wise to choose a good secure area, right? It's wise to use a good or to choose a good secure area and to go over there, right? If you have valuable stuff at your home, you can, you have the time to take those things to that particular safer place. Okay, otherwise it's going to be too late, right? Then the next one, dying or slanting of trees on the slopes. Now if there are trees on the slopes, sometimes these trees may die. It's mainly because that roots are interconnected. Now you know that roots are interconnected with water sources. So if the bottom layer of soil is going to move down, definitely the water sources are also going to move down with that particular soil layer. So roots will not be able to provide water to the plant. So the plant will definitely die. The top part will die, right? Because of not receiving enough water from the roots. Because there is no soil to provide water, no? Or else, sometimes, my dear children, these trees may slant. It's because that the root system is the one which is providing rigidity to the plant. So if the root system is not connected with the soil, the root system will not be able to keep the plant rigid. In that case, the plant will slant down. So appearing slanted plants or slanted trees, and sometimes trees may dry and they will die, right? Trees may dry out, leaves will fall down, and trees may dry out suddenly and they will die. So in that cases also, my dear children, there is a pre-sign of a landslide. So if you can observe those signs, be very careful, right, with the land, because there can be a landslide. Then the next one, sudden leaking of muddy water on slopes. The next one, then here it is given in some slopy regions like this. Sometimes, my dear children, muddy water will come like this. Sometimes like this, muddy water will come and flow like this. Okay, within a certain range, within a certain mountain range, muddy water, not from the top, but from the middle parts of the mountain or from the cliff, muddy water will come down. So this is also a pre-sign of a landslide, because water which is soaked into the mountain is now going to come through this kind of a place, not from the top, but not from the bottom, but from the middle part. If the water is coming from the middle part, that means, my dear children, water has soaked into the mountain itself. So that's why it is coming out from the middle part. So there is a higher risk in getting a landslide if you can observe this kind of a incident. Okay. Then, sudden surface runoff of water or disappearing of springs. Sometimes, my dear children, now there can be water sources at the top of the mountain or at a certain level of a mountain. There can be water sources like ponds, small ponds, right? So when you suddenly these water sources will disappear. So this disappearance is going to occur mainly upon leaking water into the mountain, right? So in that case also, there can be a landslide. There could be a landslide. That particular case also will lead to a landslide. So it's so if you take a high hill country area, if you are going to climb a certain cliff, or to a certain mountain, and if you can observe a certain fountain on a particular day, and now we are going to repeat the same on the next day, and you are going to watch whether the fountain is there or not. If the fountain has been disappeared, then my dear children, there's a risk of getting landslide on that particular mountain, right? So disappearance of these fountains or springs which are located on a mountain or hill area will show you a pre-sign of a landslide. Then the next one, animals showing abnormal behaviors. Now sometimes, my dear children, like dogs, especially dogs and other animals also, they show abnormal behaviors. Not only during landslides, but also with other, when you take other natural disasters like earthquakes. Before occurring an earthquake, different animals, they show abnormal behaviors, right? In the same way also, my dear children, during a landslide, different animals, especially dogs, they show abnormal behaviors. So by monitoring these abnormal behaviors also, we can decide whether a landslide or whether any natural disaster is going to occur with the certain environment or not. Okay, here we can investigate about their behaviors, about the behaviors of the animal, to get a certain idea about the natural disasters. Not only for the landslides, it is going to match with almost each and every natural disasters which is going to occur in our environment. Okay, most of the times, if there is a natural disaster which is going to occur in the recent future, right, then animals are going to behave and going to show some awkward behaviors. Okay, then appearing new water springs. Now in the earlier case we discussed that disappearing of waterways or disappearing of springs. However, appearance of new springs is also a pre-sign of landslide. Sometimes within a certain hill area, new water springs may occur. That is also a pre-sign of a landslide, right? Then entering water into cracks of the earth and oozing out from some other places with mud. Now the next one is, it's like this. Now let's imagine that the water stream which is coming from the top of the mountain is going to come up to here and going to disappear, right? Like this. This is the mountain. Okay, now this is the water stream which is coming from the top of the mountain, and up from here it's going to disappear, my dear children. Then once again from this place it is going to come out. Okay, from the top of the mountain water is coming like this, then like from this kind of a place it is going to ooze out. From here it's going to disappear, then from a different place it's once again going to appear. So within this kind of a condition also, by observing this kind of a, if you can observe this kind of a condition also, then my dear children, it is also showing a pre-sign of a landslide. Okay, this is also a pre-sign of a landslide. So in a particular hill area, in a particular hill country area, if you can observe this kind of an incident, right, try to find out a safer place. Don't be there, because it is going to be a landslide. It may occur a landslide in the recent future. Okay, right. So these are the several pre-signs that we can observe before a landslide. if you can observe at least 2 or 3 signs, it's better to keep away, or it's better to move away from that place to a particular safer place, my dear children. So try to get away from these places, because we don't know how much is the magnitude of the disaster. So it's much better to stay far away from these places if you can observe these signs. Okay, right then. So these are the pre-signs of a landslide. Pre-signs of a landslide. Right. So we discussed about the landslides, my dear children, and the way of occurring a landslide and the main reason behind it. And we discussed about the pre-signs that we can see during a landslide, before a landslide, right? Not during, but before a landslide. So if you can observe those pre-signs, then you can leave that place to a safer one, right? Now, my dear children, we are going to discuss how to manage the disaster caused by landslides, right? How we can manage the disaster. So here it is given, management of landslides. Number 1 given, removing the slide initiation area. The slide initiation has a large rock or thick layer of soil under which there is an area of water or mud. That is the first place to collapse with a heavy noise during a landslide. Now, first and foremost thing is to remove the sliding area, right? Removing the sliding area. So by removing the sliding area, my dear children, we can, mitigate, or we can reduce the effect given out by the landslide. Up to a certain extent we can reduce, not entirely, but up to a certain level we can reduce. Okay, so by removing the slide initiation area, we can mitigate the adverse effect given out by the landslide. Then the next one, removing of slide initiation area is very difficult, as it is not easy to reach the place. To avoid the destruction caused by the landslide, the slide should be removed using cranes. This should be done by the relevant authorities. Now, like I said in the earlier point, best way to is remove the area, the slide initiation area. But the thing is that it's very hard and it's very difficult to identify the particular place. And the other thing is that, my dear children, if let's imagine that we can identify that, then we won't be able to reach that point. Sometimes the area is, sometimes the area is very high. So my dear children, the thing is that it's very difficult to identify these places. And even though we are going to identify those places, it's very difficult to remove these rocks and soil layers. So in that case, right, we should inform the authorities. Right? In that case, we should inform the authorities. Then the authorities will come and they will give you a solution. Right? So this is the next step. So it's really important to observe these things, my dear children. Right? People should have to observe. If they are living in a certain hill area, then they should observe during rainy season. They should observe the mountain. Right? And if a landslide is going to occur, that there can be pre-signs. So by looking at those pre-signs, they can decide whether a landslide is going to occur or not. Then by looking at those signs, my dear children, they can find out the slide initiation area. Then if they can't remove the initiation area by themselves, then the better thing to do is informing the authorities. Then the authorities will come and handle the situation. Okay. Then the next one, There are three main risk areas in a landslide, namely initiation area, flow path, and depositional area. Relevant authorities must be assigned power to take necessary measures to prevent landslides. So, if you take a landslide, there are three particular areas. So, we know what do you mean by the initiation area. This is the place where the landslide is going to occur mainly. Then the flow path. This is the path which the landslide is going to occur. Then the depositional area. These are the areas which the rock and the soil is going to deposit. Depositional area. So the authorities should have the power, or we should have to inform the authorities. So the authorities must be assigned power to take necessary measures to prevent the landslides. So, first of all, we need to inform for the authorities. Then the authorities would come and they will handle the situation. They will see like what are the things they can do. Sometimes when you are traveling to hill country, my dear children, you may have observed that there are several, fences which have been arranged around a certain cliff area or mountain area. That is to maintain the strength between soil layers so that the landslides will not occur. Right? These fences, these artificial fences are going to strengthen the bond between two layers of the soil. Okay? So, it would help to mitigate, right? It would help to mitigate the risk of landslide. So, the authorities has the power to do these kind of stuff, right? And also, they have the economical power as well. So, as we are normal people, we won't be able to do that kind of stuff, because lots of human power will be needed for these things, and also lot of money, right, should be needed to plant these things. So it's not easy. So the power is having with the authority. So my dear children, it's very important to let the authority know about these landslides first and foremost. Okay. Then evacuating people from the areas subjected to landslides earlier and let the areas be stabilized. So like I told when I was starting this lesson part, if there is a certain sign of landslide, best thing to do is take your valuable stuff and evacuate from the area. Okay. That's the best thing to do. Then let the place to stabilize for few days. Then after that you can go and settle. If the landslide is going to occur, then my dear children, your valuable things will be saved, and more than that, your life will be saved. Right? So it's very important to stay aware of these signs of landslide. Then it's very important to evacuate with your belongings, with your valuable belongings, to a safer place. Then when it is going to stabilize, you can come back. Okay. Then the next one, bringing down water using pipelines when it is collected in higher levels. So this is also a good trick. Now, soaking of water is the main reason for a landslide, no? So if we can remove water by using pipelines which contained within the mountains or cliff areas, then my dear children, we can minimize the risk of getting landslide. Okay, we can minimize the risk of getting a landslide. So it's better to, right? It's better by using pipelines, special pipelines, to remove water which is soaking inside the mountains. Most of the times this will be taken by the authorities. These steps will be taken by the authorities to remove water which are soaked into the mountains. Okay, so these are the ways which we can mitigate or minimize the we can minimize the adverse effects caused due to landslides. Okay, so by doing these or by following these methods, my dear children, we can minimize the loss of lives and the loss of properties too. Okay, not, I mean, like, we can't 100% avoid it, but however, up to a certain level, we can minimize the casualties. Okay, right then. Right, then the next one. Digging contour ditches to drain rainwater down the slope without letting it soak into soil. Now we need to ditch, contour, right? Contour soaks, right? We need to dig contour ditches to drain rainwater. So it will, you know, that water will soak into the mountains. So by, you know, like by doing or by ditching contour drains, we can do, or what we can do here is, we can avoid the soaking of water into the mountain, right? So here, digging contour ditches to drain rainwater down the slope without letting it soak into the soil. So main aim is to take out the rainwater without soaking them into the mountain, right? Without soaking that thing into the mountain, we are taking those things out by taking contour ditches, okay? By making contour drain ditches. So soaking of water is the main reason behind landslides. So by doing this thing, we are avoiding it, okay? Then the next one. If a slope of a hill is necessary to cut, it should be cut in a cascade manner. Water drainage systems should be prepared. Cover crops should be grown. So here, if we need to cut the slope, then we need to cut it in a cascade manner, right? We need to cut that thing in a cascade manner, not in a straight manner, but in a cascade manner. Okay. Then water drainage systems also should be prepared. And also, if you can, you need to plant cover crops like lavender. Okay, cover crops. Then the next one. Stability of the land should be considered when selecting a land to build a house. It is not suitable to build houses in slopey areas by cutting the slope. A place of prior landslide is also not suitable for putting up houses. Now, most of the times, my dear children, now these things are mainly occurring in hill country areas. If a certain person is going to construct a house, then what will do? Then most of the times the people in that area will do this. They go to a certain hill, then he will cut the land, then on that place he will do the construction, or he will construct a house like this. And you take the hill like this, cut, and within this place he will build up the house. So this is not good. This is not a good way to build up the house. If you are building houses, then my dear children, you have to get, right? You have to get the permission of the authorities in order to build up a house like this. Because when we are building constructions, when we are building houses, we should know that right? Now you know that we are spending huge amount of money to build up these things, no? So it's important to build these things safer, right? So it's very important to, right, it's very important to select a suitable land for a construction, right? So it is given here, stability of the land should be considered when you are selecting a land to build a house. It is not suitable to build houses in slopey areas by cutting the slope. So this is a slopey area. Now by cutting the slope, it's not probable to build up a house like this. A place prior to landslide is also not suitable to putting up houses. Now in the earlier, there was a landslide which was happened. So if a certain area, if there is a certain area, right, if there is a certain area with a landslide prior to the construction, then my dear children, we should never choose that place. Because if there was a landslide, then it can happen once again. So we should never select that place when making our houses. Then here finally it is given, if a construction needs to be done in a district of landslide threats, consulting National Building Research Organization (NBRO) is necessary. People can get necessary directions from the regional officers of the soil organization. The web address is given www.nbro.gov.lk. Now, if you need to build up a house, in a certain area that has a threat of landslides, then my dear children, by your own you can't do this thing. You have to get the permission of the authority. So there is a certain authority which is named as the National Building Research Organization. So you have to go over there. You have to go for an office of these guys and you have to inform them that you are going to build up a house within this area. So you can ask whether it is safe or not. So they will give you the guidelines, necessary guidelines. So even you can reach to them by using this web address. Okay. So it's very much important to keep this thing in mind. So if you are making or if you are constructing a house which has a probability in getting a landslide, my dear children, it's very much important. It's pretty much important to follow up these things. So my dear children, this is how we minimize or mitigate the adverse effects of landslide. This is how we manage the disaster landslides. It's very important to follow these things, especially for the people who are living in hill country area, right? So we discussed about the landslides then within this chapter, my dear children. Now in the next chapter, I'm going to discuss about the final natural disaster that we are going to discuss within this lesson. It's the lightning. So we'll meet you with the lightning chapter, right, just after finishing this thing, right? So now it's time to finish up this chapter, my dear children. Within our next chapter, we'll be discussing about the lightning then.
To watch these important lessons, subscribe to DP Education's YouTube channel right now. Click on the bell icon to stay updated on the latest lessons. Sri Lanka's largest free online school, DP Education.